My name is Vres, and I am writing this. So my people will remember what happened, so they will remember the day. We made the worst choice in our entire history. My hands are shaking as I type this. They have not stopped shaking in 3 days. It started in a cold metal room on our largest warship. The ship was called the Iron Crown, and it was the pride of our fleet. I was a junior officer, only 20 cycles old, and this was my first real mission. I was so proud. I had a clean uniform, I had polished boots, I had a small data pad with my notes on the new species we were about to meet. The species called themselves humans. Our report said they were weak. Our report said they were small. Our report said they had only 80 years of faster-than-light travel. Our report said they lived on one home world and 17 small colonies. Our report said they had maybe 3 billion people total. Our report said they would fall in 3 weeks, just like every other species we had met before them. Our reports were wrong. Our reports were so very wrong. Warlord Kelter stood at the front of the meeting room. He was huge even for our kind, and his armor was covered in marks from the 47 species he had already conquered. He looked at me and said, "Read the terms, keep it short. These creatures do not deserve long words." The door opened, and 3 humans walked in. I had seen pictures of humans before, but pictures do not show you everything. The leader was a woman. She was small, smaller than me by at least a full head. Her hair was dark and tied back. Her skin was pale. Her eyes were bright green, and they moved around the room very quickly, looking at every door, every guard, every weapon. She was smiling. I did not know then what that smile meant. I know now. Her name was Claire Morgan. She was the lead ambassador from Earth. Behind her stood 2 other humans, a tall man with brown hair named Peter Hall, and a woman with short blonde hair named Grace Miller. Both of them were also smiling. All 3 of them moved like they were relaxed, like they were having a pleasant day, like they were not standing in front of the most powerful warlord in our part of the galaxy. "Welcome," Warlord Kelter said. His voice was cold. "I will make this simple. Your species is now part of the Clethari Dominion. You will give us your colonies. You will give us half of your industrial output for the next 100 cycles. You will give us 10 million of your young as workers. You will kneel, and you will serve, and you will thank us for letting you live." I watched Claire Morgan's face. I expected fear. I expected tears. I expected her to fall to her knees and beg. She laughed. It was a small laugh, soft, almost kind, like she had just heard a child tell a joke. She looked at her 2 companions, and they laughed too. Then she looked back at the warlord and said, "Oh, sir. Oh, you sweet silly man, you have no idea what you just did." The room went quiet. My secondary heart started beating faster. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Warlord Kelter's face twisted with rage. "You dare laugh at me? You dare mock the Dominion?" "I'm not mocking you," Claire said. Her voice was gentle now. "I'm trying to warn you. We came here in good faith. We came here to offer trade and friendship. We came here to share what we have with a new neighbor, but you came here to threaten us, so let me give you one chance, just one. Take back your words. Say you made a mistake, and we can all walk out of this room as friends." Kelter stared at her like he could not believe what he was hearing. Neither Could I no one spoke to a warlord this way? No one. I will have your head for that insult. Kelter said. He raised his hand. The guard on his left lifted his energy weapon and aimed it at Claire. Then something happened that I still cannot fully explain. Claire moved. I do not mean she stepped aside. I do not mean she ducked. I mean she moved so fast that my eyes could not follow her. One moment she was standing in front of the warlord. The next moment, the energy beam was passing through empty air, and she was 3 steps to the left, still smiling, still calm. Peter and Grace had also moved. Each of them had pulled a small weapon from somewhere on their bodies. The weapons were tiny. They looked almost like toys. But the 2 humans were holding them in a way that told me, even with my limited experience, that they knew exactly how to use them. Last chance, warlord, Claire said. Apologize, step back, let us leave. Kelter ordered his guards to fire. 12 of our best soldiers raised their weapons. The humans did not run. They did not hide. They did not even look worried. Peter spoke into a small device on his wrist, and suddenly every screen in the room went black. Every light flickered. Every guard's weapon made a soft clicking sound and stopped working. We have been listening to your fleet for 6 months, Claire said. Her voice was no longer gentle. It was flat and cold and very calm. We know your shield frequencies. We know your weapon codes. We know the names of your ships and the names of your officers and the names of your children at home. We came here today to see if you would choose peace. You chose this instead. Remember that. Remember that you chose this. She turned to leave. Peter and Grace walked backward toward the door, keeping their small weapons pointed at the room. At the doorway, Claire stopped and looked back at us one more time. Congratulations, warlord, she said. You just picked a fight with the galaxy's deadliest predators. We will see you soon. They left, the door sealed behind them. A few seconds later, the lights came back on and the weapons worked again. But by then, the human shuttle was already gone. Warlord Kelter roared with anger. He shouted orders. He called his admirals. He demanded that every ship in our fleet make ready for war. He said we would burn Earth to ash. He said we would turn their colonies into dust. He said we would make the humans beg for the mercy they had refused to give. Everyone in the room cheered. Everyone except me. I stood in my corner, silent, holding my data pad, thinking about what I had just seen. A small woman had walked into a room with one of the most powerful warlords in our space. She had been threatened with instant death. She had not been afraid, not for a single moment. She had laughed. She had moved faster than the eye could see. She had shut down our systems with a single word on a wrist device, and when she left, she had been smiling. I thought about our reports. Our reports said humans were weak. I thought about something else too. Something I had read late one night in the research file, something most officers ignored because it did not fit the picture we wanted to paint. Humans had spent most of their history fighting each other, not other species, each other. For 10,000 years on a single small world, they had fought wars, built weapons, and developed new ways to defeat enemies who looked exactly like them, who thought exactly like them, who knew all their tricks. They had done this over and over and over again, each generation learning from the last, each war more advanced than the one before. They had invented weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash. They had built them, they had used them, and then they had kept building more. By the time they reached the stars, they had 10,000 years of practice at one very specific skill, the skill of defeating opponents who were just like themselves, the skill of being a predator and surviving other predators and winning. And now Warlord Kelter, who had only ever fought prey species, species who ran from him, species who begged, had just told this 10,000-year-old predator to kneel. I sat down in my corner. My hands were shaking. No one noticed. Everyone else was celebrating. I was the only one in that room who understood what was about to happen. I was the only one who was afraid. And I would be right to be afraid, because the humans were already coming. And they were not coming to talk. The fleet left orbit 6 days after that meeting, 400 of our finest warships, under the personal command of Warlord Kelter himself. The mood was high. The soldiers sang battle songs. The officers drank victory wine before the battle had even started. They joked about which human cities they would each be assigned to govern. They made bets about how long the war would last. Most said 2 weeks. Few said 1. The most confident said 3 days. I did not make any bets. I sat in my small cabin and I read everything I could find about humans. Every report, every file, every piece of data our spies had gathered over the past 80 years. I read about their wars. I read about their weapons. I read about the strange ways they had of bonding with each other, of forming groups that would not break, even under the worst conditions. I read about something called a mother who would attack creatures 10 times her size to protect her young. I read about something called a soldier who would walk into certain death for a piece of colored cloth called a flag. I read about something called spite, which made humans harm their enemies, even when it cost them everything. I read until my eyes hurt. I read until I could not stay awake anymore. Then I slept and I dreamed of a small woman with green eyes standing in a burning room still smiling. When I woke up, we were nearly at Earth, and everything was about to change. We came out of faster-than-light travel, on the edge of the human star system. 400 warships arranged in perfect attack formation with the Iron Crown at the center. I was on the main bridge standing behind my console watching the tactical screens come to life. Every officer was at their station. Every weapon was ready. Every shield was charged. The screens showed us the Earth system, and the Earth system was empty. No fleet waited for us, no defense platforms orbited the outer planets, no warning ships patrolled the edges. Nothing. It was as if no one was home. Warlord Kelter laughed. They have fled, he said. The small creatures have run from us, just as I said they would. Advance, burn their cities, take their colonies, leave none alive who raise a weapon against us. The fleet moved forward. Then the screens went dark. Every single sensor on every single ship all at the same moment stopped working. No warnings, no flickers, no slow fade, just darkness. We were blind. 400 warships, and we could not see anything beyond our own hulls. Report, Kelter shouted. What is happening? The communications officer tried to reach the other ships. The comms were also dead. Total jamming across every frequency, something our best scientists had told us was not possible. I looked out the small physical window next to my console. I could see stars. I could see the distant blue dot that was Earth. I could also see something else. Small shapes moving fast, coming from every direction at once. "Warlord," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Warlord, look." He did not hear me. He was shouting orders. Other officers were shouting too. The bridge was a storm of noise and confusion. Outside the window, the small shapes grew larger. They were ships, human ships. They were smaller than ours, uglier, strangely shaped, like they had been built in a hurry by many different hands. But they were fast. They were so vast. They had been hiding, I realized. They had been hiding inside the clouds of the gas giants. They had been hiding behind moons. They had been hiding in the shadows of asteroids. They had been waiting for 6 months, maybe longer. They had been waiting for us to come. The first human ship passed our window, so close that I could see the markings on its hull. It had a name painted on the side. The name was simple, just 3 words. The word said, "You brought this." And then the battle began. The first cruiser to die was the Bloodhammer. It was one of our strongest ships, with triple-layer shields and 200 heavy guns. It had served the Dominion for 60 cycles, without a single scratch on its armor. It lasted 4 seconds. A small human ship, no bigger than one of our shuttles, came out of nowhere and flew directly into it at nearly half the speed of light. There was no explosion. Not at first. There was just a flash of pure white light, and then the Bloodhammer was simply not there anymore. In its place was an expanding cloud of broken metal and glowing dust. The human ship was gone too, of course. The pilot had known this. The pilot had done it anyway. I stared at the window with my mouth hanging open. "They are ramming us," someone said. Behind me, "The small creatures are ramming our ships on purpose." Our reports had said humans did not ram ships. Our reports had said this was because humans valued their own lives too much. Our reports had said many things, and every single one of those things was being proven wrong in front of my eyes. The second ship to die was the Stormclaw, then the Nightfall, then the Iron Vein. The humans were not ramming all of our ships, only the biggest ones, the ones that carried the most soldiers. For the smaller ships, they had other methods. I watched a group of 5 human fighters swarm one of our destroyers. They moved in a pattern I did not recognize, weaving and turning in ways that should not have been possible. Our destroyer fired at them hundreds of shots, and the fighters simply moved aside each time. Each dodge looked almost lazy, almost relaxed, like a dance they had practiced many times before. Then one of the fighters fired a single small weapon at the destroyer. Just one shot. The shot hit a specific point on the destroyer's hull, a small maintenance panel that only showed on engineering schematics, the panel that protected the main power conduit. The destroyer broke in half. Both halves went dark. "How do they know?" Warlord Kelter whispered. He was standing perfectly still in the middle of the bridge, watching the tactical display, which had come back online just in time to show him our fleet being torn apart. "How do they know where to hit us?" I knew how. I had just figured it out. "The spies, Warlord," I said. "Humans who were on our trading posts for the past year, the ones we thought were just merchants. They were learning our ships, every bolt, every weak point, every maintenance panel. They knew our ships better than we did before they ever fired a shot. Kelter turned to look at me slowly. His eyes were wide, for the first time in his long life. I think he was afraid. "Get us out of here," he said quietly. "Warlord. Retreat, full emergency. Jump every ship that can still move. Get them out of this system." The order went out. Our fleet, what was left of it, began to turn and run. Here is the part I still do not understand, even now looking back on it. The humans let us leave. They could have destroyed us all. They had the position, they had the speed, they had the knowledge. They could have killed every single ship, every single soldier, every single officer, including me. But as soon as our ships began to turn and run, the humans stopped firing. They simply held their positions and watched us go. I watched the tactical display as we jumped back to safe space. 400 ships had come to Earth. Only 240 jumped away. 160 ships and all the crew on board were gone. The battle had lasted 90 minutes. As the Iron Crown entered, faster than light travel, a single message came through our communications. It was on the Warlord's private channel, the one that no one should have been able to access. The message was a video. It was Claire Morgan. She was still smiling. "Warlord Kelter," she said, "that was a warning. We spared you so that you can go home and tell your council what you have seen. We do not want a war. We want to talk. Send a real ambassador next time, not a soldier, a diplomat, someone who can listen. We will be waiting for 30 days. After that we will come to you, and you will not like it if we come to you." The message ended. Warlord Kelter stared at the screen for a long time. Then he turned and walked off the bridge without saying a word. I heard later that he locked himself in his cabin for 2 full days. When he came out, his hair had turned white. I was not on the Iron Crown anymore. By then I had been transferred to a fast courier ship. My orders were to travel directly to the council and deliver my full report in person. I was to tell them everything I had seen, every detail, every moment. I was to tell them that we were losing a war we had not even properly started yet, and I was to hope with everything I had that they would listen. The courier ship arrived at the council homeworld 6 days later. I had not slept much during the journey. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bloodhammer flashing into dust. I saw the human fighter ships weaving through our fire. I saw Claire Morgan smile. I walked into the council chamber still wearing my ship uniform, which had not been properly cleaned. I must have looked like a wreck. 12 of the most powerful beings in our civilization sat in a half-circle around the speaker platform, and they stared at me with 12 different expressions, ranging from curious to annoyed. At the center of the half-circle sat Chancellor Marath. She was old, very old, one of the oldest of our kind still living. Her scales had faded from deep green to pale silver. Her eyes, though, were still sharp. She had been the one to order this whole campaign. She had been the one who believed humans would fall quickly. "Junior Officer Vress," she said, "and speak." So I spoke. I told them everything, the meeting on the Iron Crown, the 3 humans, the speed, the small weapons that shut down our systems, the empty Earth system, the ramming, the perfect knowledge of our ships, the 90-minute battle, the 160 lost ships, the message from Claire Morgan. And then I told them what I had learned about humans. I told them about their world, a world that tried to kill them every single day. I told them about the weather on Earth, which could freeze you to death or boil you alive depending on which part of the planet you stood on. I told them about the predators that had hunted humans for most of their history. Large cats and bears and wolves, creatures that could tear a grown human apart with a single swipe. I told them about the diseases that lived inside humans themselves, tiny, living things that would sometimes kill millions of them in a single season. And I told them how humans had survived. They had not survived by being stronger than the things that tried to kill them. They had not survived by being faster. They had survived by being smarter, by working together, and by refusing to stop. I told them about persistence hunting. This is a thing humans used to do before they had technology. They would pick a large animal, an animal much stronger and faster than them, and they would simply follow it. They would walk after it for hours, for days. The animal would run, the humans would walk, the animal would rest, the humans would keep walking. Eventually the animal would collapse from exhaustion, unable to run anymore, and the humans would arrive, calm and ready, and take it. Any creature that could be hunted this way the humans hunted, there was no limit to the size or speed of the animal. If it breathed, humans could catch it. All they needed was time. The council stared at me. Chancellor Mareth leaned forward slightly. Go on, she said. I told them about the way humans bonded with each other, how they formed groups called families which would protect their members with a fierceness that had no logical limit, how they formed groups called nations which would go to war for reasons that look small from the outside but which humans considered sacred, how they would die willingly for these groups, how they would die for people they had never met, simply because those people wore the same colors or spoke the same language. I told them about the wars humans had fought with each other, not one or two wars, thousands, for 10,000 years. Humans had been at war with other humans somewhere on their planet almost without stopping. They had built weapons designed to defeat other humans who were just as smart and just as determined as them. Every weapon was an improvement on the last. Every strategy was built to defeat other humans who knew all the old strategies. I told them about the weapons humans had built that could destroy entire cities in a single flash. I told them that humans had built these weapons, used them on each other, and then kept building more. Not because they wanted to, because they were afraid the other humans would build more too. And then I said the words that I think finally broke through to the council. Honored members, every other species we have ever met evolved from prey animals, creatures that ran from predators. That is why they fall to us so easily. They are running animals and we are hunting animals, and the hunt always ends the same way. But humans are not like that. Humans evolved as pack hunters. They are the ones who did the hunting. On their world they were at the top, and everything they learned for 10,000 years was how to hunt things that were bigger and stronger and faster than they were, together as a team, using tools. I took a breath. We did not discover a new prey species. We discovered a new predator species. And we just walked up to it and we bared our necks to it and we told it to kneel. The chamber was silent, even Warlord Kelter, who sat at the edge of the room, in disgrace was silent. Chancellor Moreth looked at me for a long time, then she turned to the other members of the council. We will put this to a vote, she said. Option 1, we accept the human offer to negotiate, we send a real ambassador, we try to make peace. Option 2, we gather our full strength, 3,000 ships, and we return to Earth to finish what we started. All those in favor of negotiation, raise your right claw. 6 claws went up. All those in favor of war. 6 claws went up. Chancellor Moreth looked at the tide. Vote, she looked at me, she looked at the other council members. Then she raised her own right claw for war. The humans have tricks, she said. Humans have surprise, the humans have one small victory, but we are the Clethari Dominion. We have conquered 47 species. We have survived 10,000 years. As the masters of this part of the galaxy, we will not bend the knee to small creatures with green eyes, no matter how fast they move. Prepare the Grand Fleet, 3,000 ships. I want every warship that can fly. I want every soldier who can hold a weapon. We leave in 30 days. I tried to speak. I tried to warn them. I tried to say that 30 days was exactly the deadline the humans had set. My voice would not work. My throat had gone dry. I could only watch as the council stood and left the chamber, one by one, until only I was left standing on the speaker platform alone. A guard came in to take me away. I asked to be reassigned to the diplomatic corps. I was told politely that my request had been denied. I was going back to the front. I was going to watch my people learn the lesson I had tried so hard to teach them. And this time I suspected the humans were not going to be gentle. The Grand Fleet left for Earth on the 29th day, 3,000 ships, the largest force ever gathered in our history. Chancellor Moreth herself came aboard. The new flagship, the Eternal Dominion. A ship so large it carried its own smaller fleet inside it. I was assigned to the bridge as intelligence liaison. This was not an honor, it was a warning. If things went wrong, I would be the one blamed. We jumped into the Earth system at exactly the moment the humans had set as the end of their deadline. The system was not empty this time. The humans were waiting for us. Not in hiding, not in ambush. They were simply there in open space in perfect formation waiting. But there was something wrong with what I was seeing. The formation was huge. Much bigger than it should have been. The humans had only been expected to have maybe 600 ships total. This formation held at least 2,000. I looked more carefully at the ships. Many of them were human designs, but many were not. Some of them were shaped like the ships of the Vesari, a species we had conquered 400 cycles ago. Some were shaped like the ships of the Torlexi, a species that had stayed neutral for 1,000 cycles. Some were shaped like ships I had never seen before at all. The humans had been busy during our 30 days. They had not spent those days building defenses. They had spent those days making friends. A communication came through on the main fleet channel. It was broadcast to every ship with no way to block it. Claire Morgan appeared on every screen. Welcome back, Warlord Kelter. I see you brought friends. Let me introduce you to some of mine. The screen changed. A Vesari commander appeared, an older male with a scar across his face. Clethari Dominion, he said, for 400 cycles your people have enslaved mine. You have taken our young, you have worked our old to death in your minds. Today that ends, my people fight with Earth now, and we remember everything. The screen changed again, a Torlexi. Speaker this time tall and pale. For 1,000 cycles, we stayed out of your wars. We thought peace could be bought. With silence, the humans have shown us. We were wrong, we will not stand aside. Anymore. More faces, species I had heard of. Species I had never heard of, a dozen. Civilizations all speaking the same message in different voices. We are. Here we are with Earth, we are done being afraid of you. The final face was Claire Morgan's. Again. Warlord, you have one last chance, turn around, go home, tell your council the war is over and you lost. We will not chase you, we will not attack your worlds. You can end this right now with no more loss of life on either side. All you have to do is turn around. Chancellor Morath stood on the bridge, her silver scales reflecting the battle lights. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then she smiled slowly, showing all her teeth. Advance, she said, target the human ships first, break their alliance and the rest will scatter. The screens went dark. And then, exactly as before, our sensors went dark with them. I closed my eyes for just a moment. I wanted to remember what the bridge looked like with all my fellow officers, standing at their stations, alive and proud and certain of victory. I wanted to remember it because I suspected I would not see many of them alive again. When I opened my eyes, the battle was already starting. This time it was different. This time the humans were not playing with us. This time they had brought everything. Their ships moved in coordinated groups, each group supporting the others. They had learned from the first battle. They knew our new shield patterns, which we had changed. They knew our new formations, which we had changed. They knew our new weapons, which we had built in secret. They knew everything again. The Eternal Dominion shook as the first wave of attacks hit. Our shields held. For now, the flagship was strong. Chancellor Morath snarled orders. Ships fired back. Ships exploded. The space around us turned into a field of light and broken metal. I watched a Visari ship cut through our left flank, slicing apart a line of our cruisers with precise strikes. I watched a Torlexi frigate use some kind of beam weapon I had never seen to bring down the shields of a battleship in a single hit. I watched human fighters move through our lines like water through a broken net. 2 hours into the battle, we had lost half our fleet. 3 hours in, Chancellor Morath was screaming for reinforcements that could not come. 4 hours in, the Eternal Dominion itself was surrounded. And then, just like the first time, the attack stopped. A single ship approached the Eternal Dominion. It was small, sleek, unarmed. A diplomatic vessel. It requested permission to dock. Chancellor Morath, with tears of rage, her eyes gave the permission. Claire Morgan walked onto our bridge 10 minutes later. She was alone this time. No guards, no weapons, just her and her green eyes and that same calm smile. She stopped in front of Chancellor Morath and spoke gently. It is time to stop, Chancellor. You are out of options. We control this system. We control the space around it. We have lost many good people today, and so have you. There is no victory here for either of us if we keep going. Surrender, and I give you my word, my personal word, that your people will not be harmed. Chancellor Mareth looked at Claire for a long time. Then she turned to me. Junior officer, she said, you warned me. I did not listen. Is there still a chance to save our people? I thought about it, about everything I had seen, about the way the humans had spared us the first time, about Snorts, the way they had offered peace again. Now, even after everything. Yes, Chancellor, I said, I believe there is, but only if we stop fighting. Right now. She closed her eyes. She was silent for a long moment, then she turned back to Claire Morgan. The Clethari Dominion surrenders, she said. All forces full stop. Tell your people to stand down. I am asking for mercy. Claire Morgan bowed her head slightly. Granted, Chancellor. Stand down. Your ships send the order. It is over. And just like that, the war that had lasted less than 6 hours and the conflict that had lasted less than 2 full cycles came to an end. I did not know it yet, but this was not the end of the story. For the humans, it was only the beginning. 1 year later, I stood on a balcony in a city called San Francisco. The sun was setting over water so blue it almost looked fake. Small boats moved across the harbor. Birds flew in patterns that I had learned were called flocks. A soft wind blew against my face. It smelled like salt in some kind of plant the humans called eucalyptus. I'd been on Earth for 6 months. I was the first Clethari ambassador to the human homeworld. I had agreed to take this position, even though I was only a junior officer, because after the war ended, the council had found itself with a problem. Every senior diplomat was either dead in disgrace or too proud to work with humans. I, on the other hand, had warned them. I had been right. And so by default, I was the most trusted Clethari voice when it came to human matters. It was a strange promotion. I was still shaking sometimes, but I was also slowly learning. Claire Morgan came out onto the balcony. Beside me, she was holding 2 small cups of a hot dark drink the humans called coffee. She handed me one. I had learned to enjoy it. The bitter taste matched my mood most mornings. Big day tomorrow, Vress, she said. Are you ready? Tomorrow was the signing of the final peace treaty. The terms had been debated for months. My people had expected harsh conditions, crushing payments, loss of territory, occupation of our homeworld. The terms the humans had actually offered had been so gentle that the council had spent 3 weeks just checking to make sure there were no hidden traps. The terms were these: 1, we had to end our slave system. Every species we had conquered would be given the choice to either join a new federation or go their own way. 2, we had to sign a free trade agreement with Earth and its allies. 3, we had to agree to help defend each other if any outside force attacked. That was all. No tributes, no occupation, no demands for our young, no seizure of our industries. The humans did not even want to put a single base on our worlds. I still do not understand, I said. I had said this many times over the past 6 months. Claire always answered patiently, why did your people choose this? You could have destroyed us. You could have taken everything. You could have made yourselves the new masters of this part of the galaxy. Why did you choose to simply stop the war and walk away? Claire took a sip of her coffee. She looked out at the setting sun. It turned her green eyes into something that almost looked gold. You want to know the truth, Vress? The real truth? Yes. Because we have been you. I looked at her, not understanding. 1,000 years ago, she said, we were exactly what you were, cruel. Expansionist, certain of our right to rule, convinced that might made right. We had empires that ground down smaller peoples, we had rulers who thought other. Humans were less than them because of their skin color or their language or their gods. We fought wars for glory and for land and for things that seemed silly. Now when you look back at them. She took another sip. And then we came very close to destroying ourselves twice. We built those weapons I told you about, the ones that could destroy cities. We built enough of them to destroy our entire planet many times over. And we stared down the barrel of that for about 50 years, every single day, every single night, knowing that one wrong decision would end everything we had ever built. She paused. Something sad moved across her face. We learned, Vres, we learned the hardest lesson any species can learn. We learned that there is no victory in conquering others. There is only a long, slow decline where you become more and more afraid of the people you have crushed, more and more certain they will rise up against you, more and more trapped inside the walls you have built around them. We learned that real safety does not come from having the biggest weapon. It comes from not needing one. But you still have weapons, I said. You still fight. Yes, we do, because we learned another lesson too. The lesson that peaceful people by themselves cannot stop the cruel ones. Someone has to be willing to stand up. Someone has to be strong enough to say no. And if you are going to be the one who stands up, you had better be very good at it. Otherwise, you just become another victim. She turned to look at me fully now. That is what we decided about 100 years ago. We decided that we would be the ones who stand up, not to conquer, not to rule, just to say no. When someone tries to trample a smaller species, we say no. When someone tries to build an empire on the suffering of others, we say no. When a warlord walks into a room and demands that a whole people kneel, we say no, and we say it in a way that cannot be ignored. I thought about this for a long time. I thought about our meeting on the Iron Crown. I thought about the way she had laughed when Warlord Kelter had made his demands. I understood now why she had laughed. She had not been mocking him. She had been almost grieving for him. She had known what was coming. She had tried to warn him. I want to ask you one more thing, I said. Ask. The name on that first ship, the one that passed our window in the first battle, it said, you brought this. Claire smiled. It was a small, sad smile. This time not the predator's smile I had learned to fear. Yes. Why those words? Because we did not want this war, Vres. We had been watching your civilization for 80 years. We knew what you did to other species. We had been hoping, honestly hoping that maybe you would meet us and be surprised enough to try a different path. We had plans ready for peace. We had trade deals drawn up. We had scientists ready to share medicines with you. We had musicians ready to play your music. We wanted so badly for First Contact to go a different way. She turned her cup in her hands. And then Warlord Kelter walked into that room and demanded that we kneel. And in that single moment, he chose for all of you. He chose the war. He chose the ships. He chose the losses on both sides, not us, him. And when that first ship came out of hiding, our pilots wanted your fleet to understand in the Simplest possible word that this was. Not our choice, it was yours, you brought this. I nodded slowly, I understood. Finally, after a whole year, I understood. The sun finished setting, the sky turned dark, lights began to come on across the city below us, thousands of them in patterns that looked almost like stars, fallen to the ground. Vress, Claire said, can I tell you one more thing before you go to the signing tomorrow? Of course. The galaxy is changing, you know this. Old empires are falling, new friendships are forming, a lot of species have been hiding from bullies like your old Dominion for a very long time. They are starting to come out of hiding now. They are starting to build something new. Together, we would like you to be part of it, not as a fallen enemy, as a friend. She set her cup down on the railing. We were predators once, Vress, we still are in a way, we always will be. That is what we are, but we learned over many hard lifetimes that the galaxy does not need more predators at the top of the food chain. It needs predators who have learned to be gardeners, predators who protect the small things, predators who pull up weeds so the flowers can grow. That is what we are trying to be now. That is what we are asking you to help us be. She looked at me with those green eyes, which were no longer frightening at all. Welcome to the garden, Ambassador. Try not to step on the flowers. I looked out at the city, at the birds, at the water, at the strange, small, dangerous people who had spared my civilization when they did not have to, who had offered us friendship when they could have demanded surrender, who had picked themselves up from the edge of ruin and decided to become something better. I thought about my own people and the long road we had ahead of us, the slave worlds to free, the old habits to break, the new ways to learn. I thought about the first day, the meeting on the Iron Crown, the small woman who had laughed at a warlord, her parting words which had seemed so terrible at the time. Congratulations. You just picked a fight with the galaxy's deadliest predators. Standing on that balcony, looking out at her city with the wind in my face and the lights of the stars just beginning to appear, I realized something. Humans were still the galaxy's deadliest predators. Nothing about that had changed. They still had the ships, they still had the weapons, they still had that smile. But now finally I understood, being the deadliest predator in the galaxy was not the threat I had thought it was. Because sometimes the deadliest predator is also the one who decides to stop hunting. Sometimes the deadliest predator is the one who stands between the small creatures and the things that would harm them. Sometimes the deadliest predator is the one who chooses every single day to be a gardener instead. I raised my cup, Claire raised hers, we tapped them together gently, a human custom I had learned, and we drank as the last light of the sun disappeared behind the hills. Tomorrow I would sign the treaty. Tomorrow my people would begin their long walk toward becoming something new. Tonight, for the first time in a long time, I was not afraid. The galaxy was changing, and I was ready to be part of the change.